And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
So, retired NYPD Stephen Lee is sentenced to 6 months. 6 months for a misdemeanor assault. Something that most of us have never seen. I sure haven't seen in my career for almost 20 years with boots on the ground. 6 months. What do you think, brother?
Stephen Lee's an NYPD whistleblower. He brought down a corruption scandal in Queens where his special operations lieutenant and a few other cops that were involved in prostitution, drugs, gambling, and shakedowns, basically racketeering of Chinese-owned businesses. So he was a whistleblower. You know, he's a very controversial guy in the NYPD. A lot of people have a lot to say about him. Some say that he was involved and he flipped. He was scheduled to come on this show and talk about his career with us. But unfortunately, he was sentenced to 6 months in jail for a misdemeanor assault. Other thing with that misdemeanor assault that actually happened while he was still on the job, and he was immediately terminated, which is not usual in the circumstances. Usually people, regardless of the charge, whether they're on for murder, assault 2, whatever it may be, they will get suspended for 30 days. They'll come back to work, suspended with pay, report to 315 Hudson until their criminal trial comes to an end. That didn't happen in Stephen's case. In Stephen's case, he was fired. Criminal trial has recently just happened 2 days ago, and they sentenced him to 6 months in jail.
Look, brother, there's no more standard of justice. According to Alvin Bragg, there's one standard of justice. Apparently not. It seems that justice is not a one-size-fits-all. There's one size for NYPD or something that's politically driven towards the conservative side or the appearance of the conservative side, and then the other side is the criminal society, because we don't want to arrest criminals. We just want to arrest former NYPD or anyone that may have an alliance to conservative ideas or Trump, like Sal Greco. Here we are, one cop after another just being torn down by hypocrisy. This is absolutely ridiculous. This misdemeanor assault is something that happened in a bar, some type of nightlife scenario, which could be mutual combatants. It's not an unprovoked assault in comparison to what we see women being attacked on the streets of New York City by just a savage assailant, unprovoked assaults. Now, I want to see him get far more than 6 months, because if there's a standard, in order to have a standard, we can make a comparison. This is absolutely ridiculous, egregious. Whatever you think of Stephen Lee, whatever his priors are, his checkered past, something sketchy, I hear there's stuff surrounding him. It doesn't matter. We have to talk about this specific case, and it's absolutely egregious and it's absurd.
Yeah, so some people do go to jail in New York City. Alvin Bragg does prosecute some people for misdemeanors, because I was told that they can't do misdemeanor prosecutions because of the discovery laws. They didn't have enough to deal with. But yet we see a witch hunt for Donald Trump. We see them throwing a former cop in jail for, like you said, it's mutual combatants. You're out in a nightclub, whatever happened. And from what I'm being told, Eric, is that he actually wasn't one of the main people that assaulted this individual. Apparently, a group of his friends or one of his friends was an aggressor, and Stephen just happened to push or punch somebody, I'm not sure, during the scuffle. And the person that actually beat up somebody didn't serve any time at all. He has sentenced to no jail. So, yeah, there is no standard of justice in New York City. If you're a cop or a conservative or your name's Donald Trump, you're going to jail. If you're a career criminal, you'll feel free. We'll give you art class.
Absolutely. No standard of justice unless you're former NYPD. Let's talk about New York City Council. Right now, Yusef Salaam and Eric Botcher, they're at the forefront of a proposed bill. I've said this over a year ago publicly, and I've said it while I was at the end of the tenure of my police department career, that the city council is having competition. The members of the city council, they compete with one another of who could come out with a new bill to attack the police department. It's not about transparency. It's not about accountability. It's just about tearing down the law enforcement profession, especially the NYPD. And right now, the focus of the proposed bill is to have a mandatory 3 personnel of social workers at each precinct to do evaluations, follow-ups of social workers. It's absolutely ridiculous. This was not thought out. This was based on emotions, because I have questions. These social workers, could they potentially compromise Miranda warnings by evaluating arrestees and having conversations with them? Should there be some type of confession? Also, could these social workers actually insult the entire system because people are innocent until proven guilty, and yet these social workers are going to evaluate and follow up about the crimes that they're committing when they're presumed innocent until proven guilty. So obviously, this was not well thought out and not calculated.
This is just a dog and pony show. You know, they talk about we don't need cops, we need social workers. And that's in regards and response to emotionally disturbed individuals who've been killed while attacking the police, while presenting deadly physical force to a police officer. A police officer, in cases, if presented with deadly physical force, will exercise deadly physical force. So we've had some prolific cases in New York happen, but none where I've seen that the cops were in the wrong. So they're saying, no, we don't need cops, we need social workers. But when they come to find out and to do their dog and shoney the pony and dog show, that they're coming to find out that, wait, we can't actually have social workers respond to these emotionally disturbed people, because where it's happening in the rest of the country is cops are going there first, making the scene safe first. They're handcuffing the prisoner first, the suspect first. So this way they made the scene safe, and then the social workers come out. So they're presenting this bill as if, you know, social workers are going to be the first response. They're not going to be, and it's not going to alleviate what they're even talking about, because again, the cops will be left to deal with an emotionally disturbed person who's possibly armed, and unfortunately, in some cases, people will die.
Well, it's obvious also the New York City Council, again, proposes a bill, does not convene with the New York City Police Department to get a police perspective, to understand the nomenclature of their actual bill, and if these elements of their proposed idea can actually factor in. Because what they don't understand is NYPD policy. And it's policy for a good reason. Emotionally disturbed persons, according to NYPD policy, all the cops watch, you know the patrol guide, but for our viewers out there, if you're not NYPD or you're actually a civilian, understand that according to NYPD policy, emotionally disturbed prisoners are not removed to a station house or precinct facility. So why are the social workers even there? Emotionally disturbed arrestees are actually removed to a hospital first for psychiatric treatment or psychiatric evaluation by clinic staff anyway, before they actually go through the prison system. So why do we need these social workers? That's going to happen anyway. That system is in place. This is, again, I love that you say it's a dog and pony show. This is based on emotion. It's just another opportunity for some moronic, idiotic council member to put their foot on the ground and say, look at me. I made a proposal too. I got the cops. What did you get? Oh, I got one too.
It's politics. They all do it. It's not just the lefties. The Republicans do it too, you know, and they're saying that people are the social workers will be there for low-level arrestees to help them do social work. And I agree with you, Eric. If they do fill out any forms after an arrest, if they speak to them, that's all Rosario material. That material could all be held up in court, and it will 100% jeopardize the case. Because again, anything that happens in a police precinct, Rosario, it could be brought up in evidence, and what they discuss, we could have a social worker who potentially has a confession for a murder, right? Didn't read Miranda warnings, case is in the garbage. So the whole thing's not well thought out, like everything else that New York City Council does, or basically anybody in politics in New York City or in New York, for that matter. I mean, it's just more nonsense. We see that Eric Adams now is continuing to go after retiree healthcare, even though it was struck down in court 2 days ago. It was final. The city appealed twice, lost twice to the New York City retirees. Shout out to Marianne Pizzatola. She was on the show twice and discussed that. And basically what the New York City mayor wants to do is come after you in your most vulnerable years, whether you're 65 or over, you're Medicare eligible or you're disabled. He's going to put you in a plan that basically your premium could go up at unlimited costs.
Yeah, I think the cops need to see the big picture. Unfortunately, they don't, because most of the cops get on the job. They're quite young, they're healthy, and they don't need medical, so they don't understand, right? And by the time that you get to a point that you're going to retire, that's when you start to use it. Right, most people retire in their 40s, 50s, and some who age out in their early 60s. So you don't really see the big picture of your medical. And you're fortunate when you're on the job. You're part of a giant pool. The overwhelming majority of the job is participates in Emblem Health, so they pay $7 a month. But when you retire, you're now part of a smaller pool. And what happens if you decide to relocate from New York to a different part of the country, most places, they're not accepting Emblem Health. So Emblem Health will pay out-of-network expenses, but then the expenses that are not covered, you'll have to pay out of pocket. So I did the research myself. I looked into Aetna and I looked into Cigna. And if you want Aetna, it's $2,700 per person a month. And you cannot just sign up just for you. It has to be for the entire family. So if you're a family of 4, do the math. And if you say, you know what, I want Cigna, because everyone in the country takes Cigna, it's $4,000 a month. If you have a family, do the math. With your pension, how's that going to hold up? So now you're 65 years old, and Eric Adams changed the policy here, and now your premiums increase, inflation's going up. How is your pension going to hold up? And you're not looking for another career. This is not well thought out, and the cops have to see the big picture.
And let's talk big picture, because even though Eric Adams is insistent on putting you guys in this and taking away healthcare from you, because healthcare will be completely unaffordable by the time you guys are 65 and older. That's for damn sure. I mean, I'm paying $20,000 a year as it is right now for my healthcare. What's it going to be in 30 years when you're in your late 60s? You know, and that's the time you're going to need it the most. But let's talk big picture. It's not just Eric Adams here. I truly and utterly I point the finger at the unions for agreeing to this. And they sold you on you're getting a raise. No, you didn't get a raise. You didn't get a 3% raise. You didn't get a 10% raise. You didn't get a 15% raise. You got probably a 40% decrease right off the bat by agreeing to give up your health care and retirement. And not only that, when you get to those years, you're going to notice, like Eric said, you probably took a 130% decrease because you're not going to be able to afford healthcare. This plan's unsustainable. You're paying $7 a month right now. Imagine if right now I just told you got to pay $1,500 a month instead. Most of you guys would collapse right there. You wouldn't be able to afford anything. So, I mean, right then and there, like, the whole thing was ridiculous. So, and that's why we pushed back at that raise. It wasn't because we were trying not to get you guys raises, but we wanted you to see the big picture. And now you're going to see it. City lost the appeal. The city lost 2 appeals. He spent millions and millions of dollars trying to fight this, but it's coded into law that he cannot do it. So he now is seeking one other way to circumvent this. Funny what he appeals and funny what he doesn't. Because what didn't he appeal, Eric?
He didn't appeal the protest settlement. And the protest settlement is huge. Look what's going on right now in New York City. These protests are happening every day. We've had more than 2,400 since October 8th, after the aftermath of October 7th of the heinous acts in Israel. We have protests every day. And this protest settlement, it was a huge obstacle. But you and I talked about this earlier. We talked about this offline. But now that it's getting so out of control, they're not actually obliging by that protest settlement because they just can't. If you actually look at what's going on, they're actually in defiance of the protest settlement because the protest settlement puts restrictions on the equipment. It's supposed to have an FAA commander to ensure the First Amendment rights are held up for this. And it's supposed to be green light and red light offenses that you need a captain or above permission to actually make red light arrest. So this whole thing is just completely egregious. And he never stood up against this protest settlement, which is a huge obstacle. But yet they're operating in defiance of it. So what does that mean? Coming down the pipe, Civilian Complaint Review Board will substantiate complaints, and there will be civil liability. So again, who holds the legal responsibility for all the events that go on in New York City under progressive leadership? The cops themselves, the boots to the ground.
It's absolutely terrible. I mean, so you saw initially, like Eric was saying, you saw initially that they were trying to adhere to this protest response. But while they were doing it, these protests were turning unsustainable and they would be turning into riots every night. And people started asking Eric Adams at the press conferences, what's going on? Why can't the NYPD get this under control? And he blamed the protest settlement agreement. Right. So now, as these things are becoming more volatile because they refuse to go after the organizers and the funders of these events, now that they've become more and more volatile, now you see the NYPD has completely moved away from looking like that they're trying to adhere to this protest settlement agreement, because I don't believe they labeled out a time frame. So, and what I think that they're doing is they're trying to hold off as long as possible because they know this is doing exactly what we said it was going to do. It's going to emasculate the men and the women in the New York City Police Department. It's going to pull arrest authority from anyone under the rank of captain. And oftentimes, depending on the charge, it will actually even pull arrest authority away from captains, deputy inspectors, anyone who is not in this FAA rank of chief.
Like John said, you're spot on when it comes to that. And I don't think people actually understand the protest settlement. Better yet, I would actually question, and I'm curious if the cops themselves have been educated on the protest settlement. Has there been any literature in the department distributed to explain the protest settlement? Because to understand that they actually are responsible and accountable for any potential liability, civil liability or civilian complaints if they're in opposition of the protest settlement. And I would say that they're probably not educated for that reason. So it also brings it to light that Mayor Eric Adams actually commended the cops for using force during the protest that we watched in Bay Ridge, right? And Bay Ridge, Bensonhurst area. And what I can say about that is, it sounds great. He's right. They should be commended. It's not an ugly sight to see law enforcement use force, right? Because every time a cop is punched in the face, society's punching in the face. And when the cop punches back, he's not only standing up for himself, but he's standing up for society, standing up for public safety. But what he doesn't do, sure, it sounds great. That's why the cops are I think, bamboozled. Oh, he's going to say that he commends them, he did a great job. But when they start phasing civil liability or substantiated complaints from CCRB and that the weapon of that disciplinary matrix comes down, will Eric Adams then step in? We know the answer to that. Absolutely not.
I'm not even worried about CCRB. I'm more worried about what he's going to have IAB do to them, because I think there's going to be a lot of people getting jammed up over these protests from internal affairs, directly from the police department. We had 78 cops terminated last year. I expect that number to be even more this year and keep proceeding and grow as time goes on. I mean, so I think 100%, I think you're spot on, Eric. He's a good showman. He'll tell you the right thing. He'll say the right thing, but he never does it. And I truly believe right now IAB is sifting through those videos right now, and CCRB is going to be the least of your problems, whoever's involved in those punches. And by the way, we support you. These people, in my opinion, should be charged with terrorism. I mean, there should be terrorist acts. And on top of that, the organizers and the funders should have been arrested. But I'm going to predict right now, I've been predicting it for a little while, is that you're going to see some low-level organizers get charged, extreme charges federally, and you're going to see them get arrested, and then you're going to see a big dog and pony show by the NYPD. Look what we did. Look what we did with our federal partners. As they're on stage, there's still going to be protests going on in New York City, and you guys are still going to be out there. Your whole summer ruined. And New Yorkers' lives ruined, right? Can't commute home from work in peace. Can't go to the park in peace. Can't attend events in peace. They literally every graduation, they're standing up. I just watched a video from CSI. They go to the CSI college graduation and they start chanting like these pro-Palestine chants. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
And look, again, on this podcast, we foreshadow the events that are happening at the university when it comes to the arrest and summonses. We said no one's going to get a desk appearance ticket because they're not actually going to get arrested unless it's something completely egregious. So sure enough, we were right. There was an article that emerged in the paper that said the summonses that were distributed, most of them are actually getting dismissed. So it's exactly what we said. They're summoning and they're arresting the low-hanging fruits. Does it actually have an impact on these protests moving forward? Absolutely not. What it does have an impact is on the lives of the cops, because they're going to sustain civil liability and civilian complaints. Again, I think this always comes back to the cops, and they hold the legal responsibility. It's unfortunate, but it's the boots to the ground that pay the price for weak leadership and failure and support.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right. I mean, and there is no leadership. You know, it's Eric Adams' regime. It's the chocolate administration filled up with the token pale faces. Speaking of token pale faces, John Chell was on Dr. Phil. He's on Dr. Phil, and he's talking again. What do you think he's talking? Perception versus reality, right? And what he says to Dr. Phil is, he says, you know, we've had 180,000, well, he calls them migrants, but I'm going to say what they are. They're illegal immigrants come into New York City. And this is what they were dropped on the mayor's doorstep. No, they weren't dropped on the mayor's doorstep, John. They weren't dropped at all. He asked for them. On top of asking for them, in October, right before Eric Adams went on his exploratory mission down to the southern border, he went down there. Before he went, he said these words: the border should remain open. That is the official position of New York City, and it remains the official position in New York City today. So, John, you're 100% wrong. They weren't dropped off. He asked for them. He wanted them, and he continues to want them to spill over the borders. You know,
I think it's also interesting when you watch that interview, you see John Chell act as a typical pale token face, just like his counterpart, Michael Kemper, so apologetic that they're arresting illegal aliens. And he was asked by Dr. Phil, very simple question. When you arrest illegal aliens, do you think that they should be deported? Should they be removed from the country? And he said, well, I think that they go to jail or whatever. They do their time. They pay their summons. They pay their fine, and then they should go through the process. But if they commit some type of felony, then be deported. Stop, because he's buckling and he's pandering to his mayor that he claims to love so much and support. As John always says, I love to say it, he's his water boy. I can't take credit for saying that. That's John's words. But it's exactly what he's doing, because before Mayor Eric Adams was in office, John Chell was one of the many guys that were saying that he was a zero cop and an empty suit. But now he's just pandering to him, and he says he's the best thing since sliced bread. And he sounds so apologetic and not willing to tell the truth that we can't deport these people, and we haven't even tried to confer with ICE and try to move forward because it's a sanctuary city. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and I by the way, I don't believe that he thinks that I don't believe that's his true answer anyway. I think he thinks that these people should be deported. And let's get into it, right? Just because you committed a misdemeanor offense or a violation, that means you're a good guy and you belong in this country. What if you're on a terrorist watch list? What if you're a gang member? What if Venezuela opened up the jails and sent you here? What are a million different things? You're a violent person, but we only charged you with a misdemeanor. We think you're guilty of all these other things. We should be deporting everyone. You believe that, John. You're a liar. You're a phony. That's why we call you Chief Token Paleface. That's why we say you hold the water for the mayor, because we know who you voted for in 2020, and I'm sure you're going to vote for him again. But it's a big lie that's being told. Selling your soul for money. Selling your soul for a little bit of money and a title and a power, when honestly you're diminishing your career, you're diminishing your name, and people are losing respect for you. You might have some guys around you that you're taking care of that like you and aren't going to tell you the truth, but we're your friends, buddy. We're telling you the truth here on this show. This is wrong. You know it's wrong. You know crime isn't down. You know crime was up in 2022, and then it was up again in 2023. So just because it's down 2.6% year to date in 2024, guess what? That means crime is trending up, and we're predicting right now crime will rise again in 2024. Maybe not the end of the year when you report to FBI like happened this year, right? But in the following weeks, as the crimes get upgraded, violent crime will be up. Regular crime will be up. All crime will be up.
Speaking of crime being up, right, and violent cities, democratic cities, New York, just like Chicago, let's talk about how they're removing pretextual tools, stops from car stops in Chicago, which ultimately leads to public safety, because intrusive police work, broken windows theory, whatever you want to call it, is the bedrock and foundation to public safety. And in Chicago, they're trying to remove that by removing pretextual stops. What is pretextual stops? It's the legal justification to conduct a stop of a violation or some type of crime that may lead to other crimes, right? In comparison to when marijuana was illegal in New York City, there was a Supreme Court case. I'm sorry, New York State. There was a Supreme Court case that if you had a car stop, some type of interaction with a motorist, and if that car smelled of marijuana, or the persons inside the car smelled of marijuana, well, then the car or the persons involved in that car, the participants of that car, would be subjected to a search, which may lead to illegal firearms. These were justifications, great tools to use as resources to keep the city safe. But those have been removed in Chicago, and I'm sure that's eventually going to come to New York City.
Yeah, so the district attorney, Kim Foxx of Chicago, think about that. She's the district attorney. She's not a politician, right? She's not a social worker either. She's a district attorney. She introduces a draft policy that will dramatically reduce prosecutions from discoveries made during traffic stops. If illegal guns, drugs, or stolen property is discovered during the search of a car, then prosecutors will not pursue the case. Fox says that the charges from traffic stops disproportionately impact Black people. Oh, wow, that's weird. I didn't know that. The exception of this policy is that if the stop is directly resulted from a public safety incident, normal violations, registration violations, headlight signals, etc., wouldn't be counted as a threat. Absolute insanity.
That's insanity. Again, you're removing intrusive police work, broken windows theory, right? If someone has an interaction with someone and they have an expired registration, and that there's no reason to conduct that stop any further, great. There could be a summons or there could be discretion provided. But isn't it a fantastic tool if you stop the car because they had an obstructed plate, you make that encounter, and then you start as a cop, your behavioral indicators, your observational skills lead you to believe that, well, you know what? Maybe there's a firearm around inside this car. I have an infraction, but the occupants of this car seem to be very fidgety, and it doesn't correlate to this actual infraction. And maybe we could, maybe if we find an illegal firearm, maybe this person who committed a shooting before can now go get sentenced, and we have a safer society. But no, we're going to remove it. So how are we going to get that person illegally transporting firearms throughout the country? How are we supposed to find this person? Do you think someone says, hey, that person's in the car? What they're doing is removing the tools to keep people safe. Think about that. These politicians, these district attorneys are removing the tools to keep you safe. How are they good for society?
Well, she's fighting racism, though, Eric, and that's what you're missing here. She's combating racism. So we should be happy about this. We should be happy that drug dealers, people that are going to shoot people, gang members, that they're not going to feel like they were victims of racism, right? Don't worry that the cops knew you had a gun or you violated all these things. We just don't want you to feel like you were stopped. We don't want you to feel like you were profiled. Right? Absolute ridiculous. Another thing that's coming out of Chicago, I believe it's the city council introducing the bill. It's going to be that no longer are we going to call people criminals. They will be called justice involved. So that's going to help public safety. Right, Eric?
Oh, absolutely. Years ago, there was a case, and I remember there was an article on it, and I read it. I don't know where it is now. I was looking for it. But it really corresponds to this. And there was a case, it was a homicide case, and the defendant's name was Mr. Innocent. So his defense attorney did a great job of constantly calling him Mr. Innocent. And sure enough, what happened at the end of the trial? Not guilty. Mr. Innocent. He's innocent.
Unreal. Absolutely unreal. It's crime. I will expect crime to go down in Chicago because they're going to not use car stops anymore to find contraband, and they're going to call people justice involved. So crime should dramatically go down. That's what we're seeing here. What about San Diego? San Diego's mayor has a war on yoga. Free yoga classes in San Diego in a specific park. No complaints. Parks Department's going in there and summoning the person doing this. So in civil disobedience, the people in San Diego continue to go in there every day and do yoga as individuals, but they can't do it as a group, or else that's illegal. What do you think about that, Eric?
Well, it must be very offensive when women are doing yoga and they're wearing tight pants. Maybe that's what's extremely offensive. And this sounds like a really important crime to stop women wearing yoga pants. So I guess it's a war on Lululemon. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. Listen, San Diego is probably one of the nicest cities in the entire country, but even San Diego, they have their problems with homeless. They have their problems with drugs on the street. This is ridiculous. We're going to attack yoga. Are those yoga pants really offensive? You got a problem seeing women in yoga pants? Maybe if there's some men wearing yoga pants, maybe that's not something you want to see. But this is ridiculous. Where have we gone to in this country? This is silly. And for the chief to actually put her stamp on it, get her out immediately. I hope the people say this is ridiculous and vote her out.
Complete waste of resources. There's homeless people camped up in the same park. There's people using drugs in the same park, and the cops aren't even looking at them. They're solely focused on this yoga, which is absolutely ridiculous. And the reason I bring this up, it's because you have to have a line as a law enforcement officer. I'm sorry if my boss and my chief told me, yeah, you're going to write that. I'm not writing that summons. Absolutely not. That's absolute. It would have to be direct order under the threat of suspension for me to do that. And even at that point, it's not gonna look very pretty when I'm there and I'm telling you, yeah, it's not me. It's this guy right here is ordering me to do it. And I've done it before. So I've done it throughout my career. It's not something that I'm just pulling out of my pocket either. I'm always respectful. I always did my job, but when I'm ordered things that make absolutely no sense, I'm going to be vocal about it because it's your name on the line. Is this what you need to be doing while you're watching someone shoot up in the park? You're going after someone who's giving free yoga classes, helping people mentally, and no one's complaining about it? Absolute waste. Waste of police.
Hold on, John. Let's look at it honestly. You're in the park. You're looking. There's a guy who's homeless. He's shooting up, and then you got someone doing downward dog. Maybe we need to go after downward dog. That's the problem here. This is insane. Oh, are you doing downward dog or whatever? I don't know. Maybe you should be doing hot yoga out here. This is insane that we're even talking about this.
Absolutely, utterly, completely ridiculous. Honestly, I don't know. They're turning law enforcement upside down on its head. They're emasculating you from going after career criminals, violent perpetrators, people who came into this country illegally, who have nefarious reasonings for doing so. They're emasculating your ability to effectively police them, but they're turning you on the people who support you, the people who have absolutely nothing. They're not a danger to you. And this is the people we should be protecting. And that's not to say that every now and then when you're not going to give a good person a summons or something along that line, but it should be as a last resort. Really, it should be. It should absolutely be.
So John, are you telling me? Do you think that? Well, forget about it, saying you tell me. Do you think? Because I know what I think. Do you think that cops in the NYPD would enforce that if they were told to do that? Do you think that? Do you think there's any cops in the 1-2-3 that would enforce this because maybe that would get them overtime, or maybe that would be an easy mark? Let me talk to the people that are doing yoga.
I mean, I won't put on where they work. I'll just say that there's 100% a lot of individuals that are going to do exactly what they're told without thinking about why they're being told to do it. And in full disclosure, when I was younger, I would have did it too. But now that I'm an older person and I understand things more, and once I got more experienced on the job, I would say like 3 to 4 years in, I started thinking about like, wait, why are we doing this? Maybe when you're a rookie, I could kind of understand, right? You're just doing what you're told. Oh, this is what we got to do. You don't really see the big picture of it. But now looking at the big picture, yes. So 100% there's going to be people that are going to do it. I mean, look, John Chell goes on TV and completely lies about his political ideology and completely lies to the public about the truth when we go to crime numbers, when we go to that. And it's not just him. It's the entire upper echelon of the NYPD. So you think if Mayor Adams didn't tell him, get those yoga people out of there, I don't like them. I want to see only P. Diddy doing yoga. I don't want to see those pretty women over there doing yoga. John Shell's going to run over there, and we're going to be the police. We're going to bring in the Bearcat, and, we're going to make sure that Diddy's out there.
Well, hold on. Before you shut down these people doing yoga, you have to make sure that Paul Revere comes in on horseback and brings the telegram, and the telegram's going to say, no more yoga. We can't do yoga anymore. We just gave it a green light, right? Green light for the protest settlement. You can now address yoga. That's what I'm saying. The people not see the big picture. This is all laughable. It's a big joke. Speaking of lies, let's talk about your boy Tremell Thompson. Let's talk about him. I know you want. I'm going to let you say this one. Tremell, we're talking to you, brother. I know you're watching this.
So I don't know where they were going, but Tremell Thompson last night posted a picture, says he's on a private jet. And I'm sorry, it's a video, not a picture. And who do you see come walking by him on that private jet? New York City Mayor Eric Adams. I don't know where they're going, Eric. I don't know. But if I have to guess, I'm saying they're either going to Epstein Island or Diddy's Island, and they're going to do something weird there. Something weird's going on. I asked Tremell. He didn't respond. So, Tremell, if you're listening, please let us know where you guys went. Did you do the Diddy bop? What are you guys doing? I hope you didn't drink any drinks there, because so some weird things going on there. A lot of rappers talking, man. A lot of stuff in the back rooms.
It's interesting, right? Tremell Thompson had you on his show. And, we were all saying, dude, it seems like a complete setup, right? And at this time, he wasn't admitting that he's a friend of Mayor Eric Adams. He was actually trying to say that he was in opposition to things. But sure enough, it's exactly what I thought. He was trying to set you up. But, of course, John did a great job. He answered the questions fantastically with a vast amount of knowledge. But even then, it wasn't enough. 2 days later, he had to have reinforcement. He had to have his backup come. So he had Edwin Raymond on, a former retired lieutenant, in opposition of John. So sure enough, John did a fantastic job. If anyone has an opportunity, please watch that interview where John was interviewed by Tremell Thompson on Progressive Action Channel, and also a follow-up with a debate and a roundtable between John Edwin Raymond and Tremell Thompson himself. And you know what? I'm going to be biased here because John did a fantastic job, and I think he crushed the interview, and honestly, he crushed all their opinionated ideas that were based on emotion.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it very strange that they're on a jet. Like, New York City Mayor Eric Adams is back in New York City today. So where did they go overnight? It's weird. It's weird. The guy's gone every weekend. He's on a plane every weekend. I want to know whose plane they were on, where they went, and why. I also want to know, besides his security detail, Who else from the NYPD went on that plane? Those are the things I want to know. Full disclosure, we should know it. He's the mayor of the city of New York. If he brought his security with him, we need to know why he went and what he was doing.
I wonder if Edwin Raymond got a ride on that jet also. We didn't get to see all the occupants on that jet. It's quite interesting. We should know. He's the mayor. He's supposed to serve the public, and the public's not supposed to serve him. He looks like he's having a great old time being mayor. I guess there's nothing going on. There's no issues with crime. There's no issues with illegal aliens. There's no issues on the subways. I mean, everything's fine and dandy. Everything's going great in New York City. It sure appears that way. We haven't had a cop murdered recently. Everything's going just fine. Let's get on a private jet. Let's go somewhere. That's what it appears to me. I guess when you can't go to Consafritos anymore, you got to go to different places by private jet.
No, they got everything on hold now. Everything they got a good hold on it, as John Chell was telling Dr. Phil. They got a good hold on crime right now. It looks great there. Everything's going good. Let's talk about a Hellgate article comes out yesterday. And in that article, Nick Pinto is the author of that article. He says that in 2022, fourth quarter of 22 was the last time the NYPD reported case closings. Am I saying it right? Case dispositions, like detective squads, if they have a case, see how their closure rate, see the closure rate of the squad. So since 2022, the fourth quarter, we do not know cases involving 7 majors, what their closure rate is at all. We don't know if 35% of them are getting closed. We don't know if 0% of them are getting closed. What do you think about that, Eric?
Oh, I'd definitely like to see those numbers. Again, it's just another indication that this administration is absolutely the furthest thing from transparent. This is the least transparent administration that we have ever seen in our lifetime, especially with body cameras, technology. This is the least transparent. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think they should disclose this information, but I'm sure that the closure rate is probably out of control. It's probably completely diminished. I mean, we have a mass exodus. We see it right now. We have retirements that are coming up. It's going to be every 6 months that we see retirements, starting with the 2004 class. I came on the job in January 2004, and at that time, every 6 months, we were getting a new academy class. They were part of the impact cops, which flooded high crime areas. They were classes every 6 months doing intrusive and broken windows policing. And right now, what we're seeing is we're going to see retirements every 6 months. So we're losing all these cops, and we're not getting anyone to replace them, and we lost our veteran cops that understand intrusive police work. This is just completely abysmal.
No, it's absolutely. You cannot get a big picture on public safety without knowing this. By the way, it's coded into law. It's coded into the city charter that the New York City Police Department's required to report this quarterly. And in 2022, they just stopped it. So they're pulling down 911 tapes. They're stopping to report closure rates. I personally believe if it was up to them, they would stop reporting crime publicly. And I think eventually you will see that. If crime gets that out of hand, you're going to see that, oh, you know what? We don't have to give this data. And I think, honestly, it's a huge failure on the part of the voters. And it's a huge failure on the part of Eric Adams. Again, this is the least transparent administration ever. And on top of it, they look to be the most incompetent NYPD administration ever. And that's saying something, because in our lifetime, Eric, there have been administrations that have overseen parts of the New York City Police Department where the police department was systemically corrupt. Precincts was systemically corrupt. And those administrations handled policing and public safety way better than Eric Adams is.
That's complete irony. I agree with you. I mean, these administrations prior, their predecessors were just, exactly, pretty much an open book. Even with corruption going on, they had to be an open book and exposed to the public that while they're trying to maintain order, they also have a corruption problem. And right now, with the rank and file, I'm not talking about the leadership, the rank and file, we have the least amount of corruption the police department's ever had. I mean, this is by far, men and women that have high integrity, stemming from the era that we were in. But this is ridiculous. Again, this police department, this administration, just embarrassing. I think you were talking about it earlier, right? Kaz Daughtry and Therese Shepard. I'm sure they're looking for their next photo op. It's just insanity what's going on. I think that we are headed for a very bad summer. Not just with these retirements, but right now, these organizers, they've gotten plenty of information. They study, they analyze, they research, they garnered and gathered information, intelligence. And this is going to be a summer that I think the NYPD is not ready and capable to handle.
Other thing, Trump rally yesterday in the Bronx. Great turnout. Bronx came out for Trump, arguing about the numbers. Really doesn't matter to me. Whatever the numbers were at that Trump rally, they're much higher than what Joe Biden would have turned out. So I'm not even disputing the numbers. I could care less. All I know is I was proud of all the people that were out there. I saw Latina Brown out there, Madeline Brame out there. I saw the young Republicans out there. So a lot of people, the GOD was out there. Shout out to them. There's a lot of people out there supporting Donald Trump. So good for everybody that got out there. Heard a little rumor, though, that Tariq Shepard had a few sergeants running around making sure there were no off-duty people, off-duty members of the service attending the event. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'll tell you right now, I believe it.
Well, I'm not surprised. And also, what do we know? We know that at the funeral of a murdered police officer, Jonathan Diller, who was posthumously promoted to detective, that the cops could not take a picture with Donald Trump at his wake. But sure enough, I'm sure the upper echelon of the police department was trying to get their photo op at this Bronx rally. That's absolutely ridiculous. Yet that's what I'm saying. Where is the leadership set the example? Because John Chell has pretty much politicized himself through various tweets on social media, electioneered the voting process, and yet the cops can't attend an off-duty public rally. That's absolutely ridiculous. Off-duty, out of uniform, you can attend that rally, and we know that. That is not violating any policy. Maybe if you're Sal Greco, you couldn't go to that, but anybody else should sure enough go to it. This is absolutely ridiculous and egregious.
Absolutely. And they're not going to do anything for you attending that rally. They're just going to come after you other ways. And that's what's problem with it. So, Tariq, if you're listening to this, you would have been a great Nazi, my friend. You should have worked for Joseph Stalin. You would have been great. You would have been absolutely, but it's fine for you to watch CNN or MSNBC, right? But we can't be political when someone throws on Fox and Newsmax, right? Complete joke. You're a loser. You should have never even been put in that spot. You're arrogant for no good reason because you got no skills to be arrogant about. Same goes for you, Kaz. Last thing I want to talk about. The NYPD is doing so great. The Dream Team's so great. We're losing 200 cops a month, and this is prior to my class being eligible for retirement. The July 1st, 2004 class becomes eligible for retirement on June 30th. Shout out to you. Eric's class was 6 months prior to me. That happened in January. And what I've been saying is you are going to see those classes retire in mass, except for a few people that are going to stay, whether it be financial reasons or they're in high-ranking positions and they don't want to leave because they drank the Kool-Aid enough and they like kissing John Shell's ass. Whatever it may be, only a few people are staying. You're going to see people now to the beginning of 2008 retire in mass every 6 months. Eric, what do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I just mentioned that before. There's no reason to stay in this job anymore. Even we used to call it cushy gigs where someone's in a good spot. Even those people are going to leave because it's just not worth it. And if you are in a cushy gig right now, I don't know how long you could actually stay there because as the police department gets diminished, you're going to be put out in the street. You're going to work the subways. You're going to be sent to these mobile field forces, working the protest, working these riots. And if you're smart, you're going to say to yourself, you know what? If I go to these protests and I'm at the end of my career, will I face civilian complaints or civil liability? And don't think to yourself, because I'm telling you right now, if you think, well, you know what, if I see they're coming after me, I'll just retire. Well, guess what? You'll be in the same shoes that I am. As the most complained cop, I've been sued 7 times in retirement in less than 2 years, and that will be you. So that's something you have to think about. So if you have an opportunity to retire, enjoy the money that you have because 5 is better than 0, and get out while you can.
I'm with you, my friend. That's why 10's the new 20, and that's why everybody's leaving. I get a ton of calls this whole week. Oh, I don't know. I'm on the fence, blah, blah, blah. But mainly everybody was leaving. They were like, I'm on the fence. I don't know if I should stay, but I'm leaving. And I just kept saying it. I said, do what you want to do. You know, obviously, it's more financially beneficial for you to stay on if you're afraid to go out there and make money. If you don't think you have any skills and you think the only thing you could do is security, then yes, stay on the job, be a slave, and then build your pension up. Not a bad move to do, right? You get 8.25. You know, you build up your ITHP and your 50% because we're still talking tier 2 guys, right? And that'll happen, I believe until 2008, I believe, and that'll be the end of tier 2. But it is financially beneficial for you guys to stay. However, there's a lot of reasons for finances people stay, right? And I said abusers, people who are abused, they're victims of abuse. They tend to stay with their abuser for financial reasons as well. So if you're miserable, you're going to work every day with knots in your stomach, why are you staying on that job? Leave.
Well said, brother. Listen, I think we covered all the points at this point. I think that we knocked it in the park. Absolutely, keep paying attention. This is New York's Finest Unfiltered podcast. I think that we really are headed for a scary summer. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and keep your feet to the ground. And you know what? Be well prepared right now. If you're in retirement, be prepared. You know, have your HR 18 filled out. Have your firearm. Be prepared. Stay in shape. If you're a civilian, same goes for you. Be in shape. If you could get a permit to have a firearm, I suggest you do. And I'm not calling for arms or anything like that, but I think you have a right to protect yourself and your family, and just be well aware and keep your head on a swivel. You have anything to close us out, John?
No, that's it, baby. We'll be back at you.
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.